it's your girl TT from the D. Welcome to Wind Down Wednesday. We want to thank you for joining us for episode 21. Yes, we are in season 2 and we are already at episode 21. Can you believe that? I'm super excited. I want to thank you firstly for stopping by. There are several other podcast platforms you could have tapped into this evening, but you chose to come to our site and I'm super excited about that. I want to remind you that TT from the D podcast show is a platform for everyone. We have something for everybody, every type of listener. But tonight we are going to focus on the hot topic, interrupted. Let's pause with that. When you hear the word interrupted, what does that mean to you? For example, me, myself, and I woke up at a little after 3 o'clock in the morning to go to the bathroom. And I got back into bed and the room is cool. My husband's sleeping peaceful. All is well. And I'm along this sleep pattern I'm getting ready to get back into. To my mindset, of course. In my mind, I'm thinking this. And I lay down. I close my eyes. And I'm wide awake. And I'm like, okay, I need to be going to sleep so I can get up in a few hours and go to work. So let me just say a prayer and I'll go to sleep. To no such luck. Now, prayer went over perfect, but I still was awake. As a matter of fact, because my shows are pre-recorded, I'm actually up right now recording, and it is now 4:40 a.m. It's at the top of a Wednesday morning. But by the time you hear this, it'll be Wednesday evening. And I thought to myself, after laying and tossing and turning, I had a whole nother topic ready to record this evening for this Unwind Wednesday. And it was like, no. And I'm like, why am I interrupted? Why is my sleep interrupted? And I'm like, I'm praying for family members, friends, of course, my spouse and my children, myself, my mother, stepfather, extended family, the world. I'm like, okay, I should be asleep by now. I should be able to go right back to sleep. I laid here and I prayed. But then I'm like, okay, maybe you should get up and get a cup of coffee. I'm like, nah, I don't want a cup of coffee. Maybe if you get up and eat something. I'm like, no, but you're not hungry. My husband noticed I was up. I guess I hope I didn't disturb him, but he said, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm up. I can't sleep. And so we started to talk for a moment. I said, you know what I should do is go downstairs and record my show. I already have the topic revved and ready to go, but maybe I should go record it. I said, you know what? I should actually do a show on interrupted. He said, And so we have it. A show is born. It's birthed right now. I went through the very short laboring stages. This topic is simply going to come from my mind, my heart, and my spirit. And as I sit and I look at my TV light, because I turned on our TV, no sound, just the light, so I can sit in the quietness and the calmness of the home while everyone is sleeping in the house and it's quiet in my neighborhood. You can't hear anything but just the sound of fans going, although the air is on, because we are those type of people. We like to sleep with fans. But it's comfortable. It's peaceful. And I don't feel interrupted any longer. But I do want to tap into interruptions and what does that really mean to us? Why do we get interrupted in life? We can have a whole plan and then voila, something happens and we're interrupted. Now, it could totally change the way we look at life. It could upset us. It can make us throw us off our whole game. But when you hear the word interrupted, let's just unpack that. What does that mean? According to our Webster dictionary, okay? Interrupted means to stop or hinder by breaking in an interrupted speaker or frequency, a question, a uniformity of or continuation of a hot spell, occasionally interrupted by a period of cool weather, right? And I'm like, what? That doesn't seem like that's right. That doesn't make sense. So I carried on over because there are actually 49 synonyms and antonyms that you can express interruption, interrupted. But I'm going to tap into this: disrupted, cut short, suspended, intermitted, discontinued, disconnected, postponed. Let's pause and let's just even think of a few of those, if you could. Think about your phone service. If you didn't pay your bill back in the day when I was with T-Mobile, you couldn't be late a day. Your phone service is suspended. Okay? I used to be like, what? When we had Nextels, I could be dating myself because some of you listeners may say, what's a Nextel? Talk to your parents about it. A Nextel was a phone you had where we had the chirp ability, where it's like a walkie-talkie built in. It was amazing. I loved it. And so I was with T-Mobile at that time. I'm an AT&T girl now, but it would be like if you were a day late, it'd be like, they're interrupting your service. And you're like, what? So that would be a level of suspended. Or let's go to the more modern understanding of suspended for some of our more modern listeners. Okay, imagine you, if you're a young listener, or your child or children got into some type of situation in school and they've been suspended. That means the average student goes to school Monday through Friday, but now that this situation has manifested, you are no longer able to go to school. You have your regular scheduled school schedule interrupted because you're suspended. Everything has to pause, come to a halt as you know it, and now your child or children are home with you. Or that was your story, right? Disrupted. Same thing. So you get the gist of what I'm saying. I just want to give those little examples because, you might say, what? Okay, so interrupted sleep. You tossing and turning because something ain't right. Now, I thank God that this interruption wasn't one of those, oh my God, something's wrong type of feelings. I've had those in my life journey. I'm 46 years old, and in these 46 years on earth, there's been several times I was interrupted in my sleep where it wasn't good. And I felt that unction, like something's not right. Not only is something not right, something is terribly wrong. I thank God that wasn't this morning at this time. I'm interrupted, but it's kind of like, what am I supposed to be doing, Lord? For me, I thought, okay, maybe I need to be praying. So I'm praying for my husband, my children, my family, extended family. And I thought like, okay, that, and I'll cover, people that's close to me, situations I'm aware of, people might need a little bit more prayer. And then it's like, you still need to get up. And I'm like, and do what? I prayed. It's like, okay. So my rest is interrupted. My sleep is interrupted, right? Yeah, I'm tired. And then I thought about it like, no, that's how life goes. When we are in a zone of doing whatever it is that we're set out to do, whether it's an interruption that is supposed to make it interrupted, because perhaps whatever you're doing or thinking, you shouldn't be doing or you shouldn't be thinking. And sometimes we can look back and say, ooh, I thank God for that interruption. When we are on a course, let's just say a job, and you're in this job And it could be a cool job, but you kind of know this ain't your calling. This ain't what you're supposed to be spending a lot of time doing, right? Or a relationship, it just not moving on the course. And there's breakdowns. There's small interruptions. We need to pause and think, why am I being interrupted? And really unpack that. Don't answer it for yourself. Really say, why is this happening right now? For some, right now you might say, I'm going through a moment of insomnia, or I'm experiencing sleep deprivation. And then I might get sleepy during the day. It's possible. But I got work to do today, so it's kind of like, no, I don't think so. I'm definitely going to get a cup of coffee this morning. But you might be thinking like, okay, if it's not insomnia, what's happening? And I couldn't tell you. I could not tell you. Now I'm going to tell you something. This is what I know. People have said in the past, I done it a couple times, and I'm like, oh God, it's so disrespectful. Until I heard a sermon by some pastor online during the summertime last year. If you grab the Bible and you proceed to read a scripture. Now, I'm not going to tell you one of the scriptures you're familiar with, but a scripture, or you just start getting into the word. You ever notice you start yawning and you get sleepy? And you're like, am I going to sleep on the word? Is the word boring? Or is the word just like, it's not doing nothing to me? Okay, well, I read a little bit of the word and let me go on, and now I'm tired. And then I heard a pastor say during a sermon, I'm driving, right? And it was actually a podcast show, go figure. And they were saying, it's not disrespectful. That means that you found comfort and you found peace through the word of God. And that helped you get to a calm place that you couldn't get yourself to, perhaps. Because there's healing, there's power in the word. And I said, okay. I had a whole new respect for that way of thinking and reading the word. And then I also realized when we live with life interruptions, it's all about how we deal with it, how we choose to handle, and how we plan for it. Like, this wasn't planned, it was unplanned, but I'm making the best of it, if that makes any sense, right? And then I'm trying to find what could be a target point, right? Also, sometimes when we get interrupted, it could be because we're afraid of something, or we're not ready for something. And a lot of times we are ready, we don't know we're ready until we have to get ready. And then as we're going through the motions of life, we realize, I actually was prepared and I didn't know I was prepared, or I was already equipped. And someone could be listening right now, and you could totally understand where I am at this moment in time. You could have gone through this just recently, or just got over this not long ago, or just say, wow, I could totally relate to that. Perhaps this podcast is for you. I have no idea. I know it's a beautiful moment to wake up and be in our right mind, to have sight, hearing, taste, smell, touch. Because we very well could be a person that didn't rise up on this morning. But that's not our story. If you are enjoying the coolness of your evening, and even if you tend to listen to this show and you stumbled upon this show any other day of the week, just know it's a beautiful day to be in the land of the living. Be about your business. You know how people say, oh, you got to be about your Father's business. Be about your business as well. We have to learn how to respond to interruptions in life. How are we adjusting and responding to COVID-19, the pandemic? We're living through it. We are 2 years in, and we've learned to live with COVID. It was an interruption. I think it's one of the biggest life interruptions known to mankind in our season of living. If you have lost a loved one, or you've been a survivor of COVID, or you know someone who's a survivor or going through whatever that is, and we all know someone that we have been touched by that either had COVID, dealt with COVID, dealing with COVID, passed with COVID. And I thank God for every person that has beat it. And I thank God for every person who is going through it. I thank God for even the people who lost their lives to the battle of COVID because of their life prior. Their life was interrupted and they no longer are here. And if you look at that, you could say, okay, how do I process that? How have you been processing that? That's the rhetorical. No matter how we look at life, despite our plans, life, it will give you interruptions, whether it's in the mind, the body, or the spirit. And we have to step into our reality. We have to step up and say, what's up next? We could look at our future. We could plan for the future. But sometimes interruptions happen. And you're like, okay, well, things didn't go according to plan. That's why it's best to have plan A, absolutely. But let's get a plan B and a plan C and D. And if you can go E and F and a little bit more, that's great. And you might say, well, why would we plan to fail? It's not about failure. It's about if things don't go right, if this doesn't work out, what's the backup plan? You always need to have a backup plan. Even in your marriage, we plan to have a great marriage if you're a married person. But some days it won't be great. Some days will be tougher than others. Some days will be wonderful. But you have to plan like, okay, listen, what do I do if we hit a tough patch? What do I do if we hit a brick wall? Do you have tools to sledgehammer your way through it? Or do you retreat and go back and say, well, we can't get past this wall. Let's turn around. When you turned around, what happened? That's rhetorical too. Interruptions happen so we can respond by preparation. For another example, life insurance, which we all need to make sure we have, because you don't want to have to be faced with losing a loved one and you can't bury them. Or if they plan to be cremated, you don't know the necessary steps to do that. So, as a responsible adult, I think every adult needs to make it their priority to make sure that their spouse or their children or their loved ones don't have to carry that burden. Now, I will say this. The older generation, some are not in tune with that. Some are not in tune with that. And I think it's sometimes like with my mother, she never used to like to talk about death. She's still not a fan of talking about it. But what I've come to realize in my 46 years of life, losing loved ones, friends, coworkers, we all have to go that route. If you are alive, one day you must pass away. It's just the way life was designed. It's nothing to do with a lack of love from God. He gives and He takes. It's like you give to people you love, and sometimes during that love, You have to take away. If you have a child or children or someone you look after and they're being disobedient or they're not on course and they're not doing, you have to take away some things that they have so they can move accordingly. Because sometimes that's the only way we move, because something was taken away from us or we were interrupted. But when it comes to planning for life insurance and death, we tend to pause and we don't want to talk about it because we kind of think, I guess, that if I don't talk about it, I don't have to deal with it. That's not true. If you are a recovering addict of whatever your vice is, an addiction, you know that it's a process. And you know that if you have backslid, or you're a backslider, which we all have and we all will because we're human. So don't beat yourself up. You're not the first to do it. You won't be the last. But we have to remember that we'll get interrupted. Whatever happens, you could start over again. When you lay down and you rise up another day, do it differently. Life insurance, getting to that piece, it can be expensive, but think about this. If you are a foodie or if you're a traveler or things like that, you plan for that. You have to plan for leaving this earth as well. It's just something to think about. Some people have the mindset. I've met some people that'll say, well, I ain't going to be here, so I don't care. It's not my problem. I wish they knew about the unclaimed bodies down at the city morgue. That's a real thing, y'all. There's actually a website, and I won't put it out there, but there's a website you could actually go to of unclaimed bodies in the city. I know about it from my schooling, but in the city of Detroit, there's actually a website because there's unfortunately been a lot of unclaimed bodies. And then you hear stories that it wasn't so much that the families didn't love that person or didn't want to put them away properly. They couldn't do it, so they abandoned the body. Some took comfort in knowing that the spirit was gone and it was just the body as the temple, no longer occupied by the spirit of their loved one. So they left it up to the city. And what will the city do? They'll cremate them. There's only so long they're going to keep a John Doe. And then they have to do what they need to do. But I think that's a very terrible way of handling a loved one. And I'm not judging anybody. If nothing else, ladies and gentlemen, you can cremate your loved one or someone you know that doesn't have family or friends that know what to do or even want to be involved in that. It's the right thing to do in this life. I'll say that. But moving on about interruptions, they require you to live by faith. You have to respond every day to what happens every day. Like very shortly, I'll be needing to get myself ready for work. And I'm finding myself getting sleepy now. But I was interrupted. I made the best use of the time of me being wide awake. After praying and laying and wondering, and even initially was going to record the show that I have, which I'll be doing. I suppose I'll be doing that show pre-recorded next Wednesday for Wind Down Wednesday. Roe versus Wade. Okay? And you might say, what? Yeah. We're going to talk about the Roe versus Wade. But not right now. That's not what we're going to talk about. But we will. We'll unpack that next week, Wind Down Wednesday. But that was what I was going to record tonight. I had my voiceover ready. I thank God I didn't do the voiceover commercial release last night like I normally will do. So, it's very possible. It's very possible that God knew that I was going to be interrupted and that we were going to tap in and unwind this topic. I want to remind you, no matter what happens in life, we're going to have to deal with things. And we're going to always, and I emphasize, always be interrupted. I know you could put a sign on your door, because I've seen it done. Please don't interrupt in a meeting, in an interview. And people will still interrupt. And I'm thinking, like, can you not read? What did that mean to you? Please don't interrupt. But you still interrupt it. And it's not like, oh, there's a fire, this is an emergency. You simply have a question or a situation you're dealing with that's urgent to you. So now, although this person or these people said, please don't interrupt, we're in a meeting or we're in an interview or whatever, you still interrupted. And what you interrupted them for could have waited a few minutes longer, an hour or two, whatever that timeline looked like, but you still interrupted. And that's what people do in life. They will interrupt you. But I want to remind you not to get off course. Pause when you are interrupted. Attend to what you need to, attend to. And recognize and realize that it's a part of life and this too shall pass, but I won't be thrown off course. Because you're not going to be able to avoid interruptions unless you take yourself somewhere where you can't be interrupted. Turning your phone off or on vibrate and putting it aside, not even looking at it, being somewhere where, let's just say you need to prep for an event or a conference or a meeting or something like that. A life turning, altering, not in a bad way, moment, a season, a fasting, a sabbatical, whatever. You could take yourself somewhere and I'm not going to be interrupted. If you're in a hotel, you can let them know, I don't wish to be interrupted. Please don't patch through any calls to my room. Take messages if nothing else. Or you could let them know that I didn't want to be interrupted, to please leave a message, or they could send a text message, email, however that looks like to you, if you need to do that. But you have to set that tone. You have to figure out that if you want to not be interrupted, because as long as you are amongst other people, you literally would have to go. A sign doesn't work the way we need it to work. You think it does, but I respect that. If I see a sign, don't interrupt, do not enter, blah, blah, blah. Ooh, okay. Let me send a text message. Or let me send an email. Unless this is an emergency. And I know what an emergency, y'all, what that is. Some of us in life need to really look up the word emergency, because some of you guys don't understand what that means. It really, really bothers me. It's almost like you have a lack of respect, but I understand that that's not always the case. Some people don't know how to move forward when they don't have a plan A, B, C, D. They just got this one moment, this one thing, this one way. And when it doesn't go their way, they're sitting like, oh my God, what do I do? Oh my God, I got to ask somebody. It's like, oh God, listen, lady, listen, sir, ma'am. I'm going to need you to pause and get your whole life and figure that out. Because sometimes, let me also bring this to your mindset, to go into your memory bank. There won't always be somebody for you to interrupt. That lady, that man, that boy, that girl, that friend, that coworker, that confidant, that supervisor, that director, your employees, they won't always be there for you to interrupt. And you'll have to figure it out. And it's going to alter the way you think, the way you behave, the way you move. But you have to prepare yourself for such things as interruptions. And I'm going to be clear. It will stretch you. It teaches you that you are able and capable to do more than you know you are. Although you might say, I don't have any more room on my plate. Think about when you go and fix a plate for real, to eat. When you really want something, don't you make room on your plate? Whether that means it's about the portions or you stacking it on top, which I hate that. But yeah, just make it the portions smaller so you can get more. That's what I do because I'm greedy. I'm a foodie. It's a nicer way to say that. I'm a foodie. So I figure out portion control or how I'm going to do that. But in real talk, we really have to plan, ladies and gentlemen, on how to deal with life interruptions. Because there's no way to really avoid them. If it's meant to be an interruption, it's going to manifest whether you like it or not. It's all about how we plan to deal with those interruptions. And because life happens on a day-to-day basis, moment by moment in certain situations and circumstances, second by second, like you living and breathing, second by second, moment by moment, it's every day, it's a movement. You have to trust the process of even living because we don't know. Yes, we plan to grow old and wise, but if that's not the plan that was put out there for us, your plans as you know it will be interrupted. And those around you will have to learn to deal with the interrupted plan of your life. So as I come to a close, I want you to just remember that life will bring interruptions. Your children, if you have some, or child, will interrupt you. Your boyfriend, girlfriend, your wife, your husband will interrupt you. Your coworkers, your classmates, your friends, your family, your parents, your grandparents, nieces, nephews, cousins, you get it. Extended family, they'll interrupt you. And you, my friend, you probably will interrupt people. But I want you to be a little bit more mindful the next time you do something and pause and say, is this an interruption? And that's going to be a hard one to call because sometimes an interruption is unavoidable. But in most cases, it's all about pre-planning and having an alternate plan, just like having an alternate route. Well, that's it for me, ladies and gentlemen, on this Wind Down Wednesday. It's a morning time, evening time type of love affair. I thank you for unwinding with me because it's the late time of the day for you and for me. And because it's a pre-recorded show, it's the early morning for me. And I'm going to prepare. I might try to get 30 minutes of sleep because I'm tired now, which I thank God for that. And I just want to remind you as I close out that you can find me each and every Wednesday right here until we close out season 2 to prepare for season 3. We will officially close down Wind Down Wednesday on the 30th episode. That will be our last and final episode for Wind Down Wednesday. It also will be the very last and final episode for Tap In Tuesday. And we'll shut down and come back ready to rock and roll for season 3. I want to thank you for tuning in. I'm very aware that there's several other platforms you could have tapped into, but you chose to follow and listen and unwind with me, and I am grateful. You can check me out on Tap In Tuesdays each and every Tuesday at 8 p.m. by going to StreamYard.com/Facebook. If you are a Facebook holder, log into your account and check us out at 8 o'clock. You could also check us out on my YouTube page, TTFromTheD podcast. You also can find us over on LinkedIn, Twitter. And as I said, every Wednesday at 8 o'clock right here on Anchor.fm, or you can check us out on Spotify. I'll see you soon.